Your to-do list is not what is draining you. Carrying it is. That wrung-out feeling after a day you barely dented was never the task. It was the holding. It costs more than a lost afternoon. It smothers your best thinking. There is a 10-minute fix. Start with the machinery. The workspace where you hold a thought while you use it is tiny, and it wipes. A ping annoys one stray thought, and whatever was there is gone. That is why you walk into a room and forget why. So stop asking it to hold your whole life. Tonight, before anything else, open one note and pour your head onto it. Every task, every worry, everything you keep putting off. 10 unbroken minutes, no sorting. When you stop, you'll feel it, a startling quiet. That quiet is your proof, but the page fills back up by lunch. So where does the next thought go? Into one place, not 4 apps and 3 notebooks, one spot you trust. Picture a desk buried in paper. You do not fix it by memorizing where each sheet sits. You sweep them into one drawer and the surface clears. Pick your drawer today. A notebook, a notes app, or the fridge whiteboard. Everything lands there, and it is worse than the tiredness. You pay that price and still lose things, because a workspace that wipes drops whatever it held, no matter how fiercely you guard it. Effort was never the gap where the effort goes is. Now, change when you offload. A task lands in your head that is the instant it should leave in the seconds before it evaporates. Build one rule when you catch yourself thinking I'll remember that, treat it as an alarm and write it down now. Your memory has broken that promise 1,000 times. The page never has. By now it feels handled, a system that stops you forgetting. But forgetting was never the real prize. A mind that is not guarding a list is free to connect, notice, and create. The clutter was not only tiring you, it was sitting on your intelligence. Empty on purpose every day, and make your mind the last place you store anything, not to remember more, but to remember less and get your thinking back. So empty it 10 minutes onto one page. House it, everything, into one trusted spot. Catch it, a thought lands, it leaves. Do only the first tonight. Your mind is a scratch pad, not a filing cabinet, and the exhaustion you blamed on yourself was never weakness. It was a sharp mind begging you to hand it the right job. A student sat near the top of every score that predicts success and still ended up on academic probation. His name was Mike. He knew the material cold, could explain it in conversation, then failed the test 3 days later because he could not make himself prepare. His father's theory was 4 words: smart but lazy, and Mike came to believe it. Here is what that word hides. Lazy is not an explanation. It is an insult wearing the costume of one. It names the result, the thing left undone, and staples a verdict to it while explaining nothing about the machinery that failed. So delete it. The next time you think, I'm lazy, stop and ask what a good coach would ask. What actually got in the way? Right there. That question has an answer. The insult never does. And the answer is always specific. Too boring and the brain will not fire. Too vague and there is no handle. Too big and there is no first step. Dodge a report for a week. Maybe the real reason is, I don't know what the first line should say, so I open it, feel dread, and close it. That is a named obstacle, and it points to the fix. Shrink the opening step until the dread cannot fire. Here is the machinery. Mike could disappear for hours into anything that gripped him. Lazy does not flicker like that. The intelligence in the essay you write at midnight and the one you cannot begin 3 weeks earlier is the same. What changes is whether the bridge from knowing to doing holds the weight. It is like a phone in a dead zone. Not rude, not stubborn. The signal simply is not there. Move a few steps and it connects. You were never refusing the work. You kept wandering into dead zones and being told the dropped call was your character. You needed different tools, not a talking to. So it looks solved. Swap the word, name the obstacle, shrink the step. But the deepest wound was never mechanical. It was the verdict moving inside and beginning to write your story. For 1 week, every time you think, "I'm lazy," write it down. Then write the real reason beside it. Read the list. There is no lazy in it, only obstacles. So catch the word. Ask what got in the way. Name the obstacle. Match it to its fix. Start with the very next lazy thought. You were never failing to do what you knew, only to do it on command. And a thing in the road, once you can see it, is something you can move. You keep trying to remember harder. That is the wrong repair. You walk into a room certain why, and arrive with nothing. The reason vanished somewhere along the way. You catch a good idea, reach for a pen, and it dissolves before the pen lands. This is not stupidity. It is a mental workspace that will not hold. The scratch surface where you keep step 2 while your hands do step 1. In this kind of brain, it is tiny, and it wipes at the smallest sound or stray thought. Here is the reframe that takes the shame out of it. You cannot organize what you cannot hold. Prioritize, plan, put it in order. All of that advice assumes the pieces stay still long enough to arrange them. Yours do not. Picture solving long division on a whiteboard that wipes itself every 15 seconds. You would never reach the answer, not because you cannot divide, but because the surface will not hold the work. That is what your whole day feels like. So stop repairing your memory and change the surface. When a task has more than one step, do not hold the steps. Write them where your eyes can land on them, like a sticky note on your monitor. This is not babying yourself. It is what skilled mathematicians do with difficult problems, so they do not live inside a memory that cannot keep them. Now comes the part almost no one fixes, and it is worse. Time itself will not stay on your board. The future does not feel real, so a deadline stays a vague someday until it suddenly becomes today. Make time physical. Put a clock where you can see it. Set a timer that counts down in front of you so the abstract becomes a shrinking number you can watch. Break distant deadlines into smaller pieces that feel close enough to act on. Your mornings fall apart because you try to remember the list harder. Instead, write the 5 steps on a card, tape it inside the door you leave by, and run your morning from the card. The forgetting stops, not because your memory improved, but because you stopped asking it to do the impossible. So write the steps where you can see them. Put time on a clock and a countdown you can watch. Do your sorting on paper, never in your head. Pick the one recurring task that always falls apart and tape its steps up today. You were always capable. You were simply working on a board that erased your work before anyone could see it. A gifted programmer lost his job and then his marriage. Not because the work was hard, but because he could not start a 2-minute phone call. His name was Steve. Give him a coding problem, and he would disappear into it for 6 hours. Yet a routine report sat untouched for days, not because he could not do it, but because he could not begin. You have lived that frozen moment. The task is right there. Part of you even wants to do it. Yet it feels like a pane of glass stands between you and the first step. Minutes drain away while you grow frustrated with yourself. And someone says the worst possible thing. Just start. That barrier has a name, the wall of awful. It is not built from the task itself. It is built from every criticism, every memory of failure, every moment of shame, stacked brick by brick, until a 10-minute job hides behind a 10-foot wall. You are not avoiding the task. You are avoiding the wall. Willpower cannot knock it down because your ignition system is wired to interest and emotion, not importance. It pours fuel into what feels interesting, urgent, or new, and starves what feels merely important. That is why Steve could spend 6 hours coding but could not make a 2-minute call. Telling yourself to just start is like turning the key harder in a car with an empty tank. So stop trying to start the whole task. Shrink the first action until it cannot trigger the wall. Do not answer the email. Open it and type, "Hi." The goal is not to finish. The goal is to fire the engine. Once it catches, momentum usually carries you much farther than you expected. Beat the wall before it rises. The night before, lay out the first step and remove the tiny obstacles. The unopened file, the missing password, the cluttered desk. You are not lowering your standards. You are lowering the force required to begin. The wall is made of feeling as much as action. The harsh voice that says, "What kind of adult can't start an email?" is the same voice that built the wall in the first place. Give yourself the tiny first step without the self-criticism, and you remove bricks instead of adding them. Shrink the first action. Reduce the friction. Start without the lash. Tonight, take the task you have avoided the longest and do one tiny first step. There has always been a door at the bottom of the wall, and it is smaller than you think. Some people run a whole week from memory while you need 3 reminders and still drop things. Here is the part no one tells you. They are not more disciplined. They simply run better systems outside their heads, and you can build one on purpose. Start with the shame, because it is the real obstacle. Pulling out a planner can feel like admitting you are less capable. So you go without, drop things, and the shame grows. But needing an external system is not weakness. Think of glasses. Someone who wears glasses is not less capable than someone with perfect vision. They simply keep perfect vision outside their eyes. Your planner does the same thing for your memory. Stop trying to become more organized on the inside. You cannot out-discipline a memory that erases. Build one external system instead and treat it as one of the most valuable tools you own. Not 5 apps and a complicated setup, one trusted system. It needs 3 qualities. It must live outside your head. Everything must go into it, with no exceptions. And it must be visible where you actually need it, not buried inside an app you forget to open. Why does that matter? Your breakdown does not happen the night before when you know exactly what to do. It happens at the point of performance, the kitchen at 7, the desk at 2. The moment an intention has to become action. Knowledge stored in advance does not survive the trip. The cue has to be waiting there, the alert at the right time, the checklist on the door, the timer on the desk. This is about more than organizing. The system becomes a superpower the day you trust it more than your own memory. You build that trust with one rule. If it is not in the system, it does not exist. Someone asks you for something on Thursday. It goes into your system before the conversation ends. Retire the words, "I'll remember." They have failed you often enough. Your system does not have to. Pick one system. Put everything into it the moment it appears. Place the cue where the action happens. One ordinary day, it will catch something you would have dropped, and that is the moment your planner stops feeling like a crutch and starts feeling like a superpower. By the end of this, you will cross 6 things off your list without doing a single one and feel lighter, not lazier. Picture your mind as a browser with 80 tabs open. Did I reply to that? What is that sound the fridge is making? Every open loop is another tab. Every tab quietly drains energy until, by evening, you cannot point to one thing you finished because all your effort went into keeping the tabs alive. Then you make it worse by saying yes to even more. There are 2 moves that fix this, and they work together. The first is capture. The instant something lands in your mind, move it into one trusted place. Not into "I'll remember," but somewhere outside your head. Aim for 0 open tabs. But capture is only half the answer. The other half is the one almost nobody does. Have less to manage. Every task, commitment, and object draws from a limited mental budget. The smartest organizing system is not one that helps you carry more. It is one that leaves you with less to carry. Fewer commitments, fewer decisions, fewer open loops. Subtraction is not giving up. It is strategy. Once a week, empty your head onto one page. Every task, worry, promise, and unfinished thought. Then ask the question that changes everything. Not, how do I get through all this faster? Ask, what can come off this list entirely? What does not need to be done by me, by anyone, or at all? Now start cutting. The recurring chore nobody would miss. Gone. The favor you accepted out of guilt. Declined with kindness. The goal you set in a burst of optimism but secretly dread. Released. You may cross off 6 items before completing a single task. That relief is not laziness. It is your mind getting a measurable amount of its energy back. Capture everything. Empty your head every week. Then subtract before you optimize. This week, release one thing completely. Do not reschedule it. Do not squeeze it in later. Let it go. Your mind was never meant to be storage. Some of those bricks were never yours to carry. A 7-year-old in Shanghai named Samuel was falling apart in school. He could not focus, and he struggled to follow instructions. He was slipping into depression. With no nearby specialist, his mother reached out to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist prescribed something unexpected: no medication. He prescribed daily hugs to counter the constant feeling of failure. He also suggested simple balance exercises like standing on one leg with his eyes closed. Within weeks, Samuel was a different child. Think about what happened. Nobody gave Samuel a new brain. They changed the environment around him, and his brain responded. The ability had been there all along, and it had simply been buried beneath the wrong conditions. Most of us believe focus comes from resisting distractions through sheer willpower. If we fail, we assume we are weak. Imagine 2 people with the same goal. One has a buzzing phone on the desk and constant interruptions. The other works in a quiet room with the phone in another part of the house. The room decides the outcome before willpower even gets a vote. Stop trying to become stronger because willpower runs out. Instead, build a room that does the work for you. Before you begin, put your phone in another room and place the one task you want to finish directly in front of you. Everything else disappears from sight. Increase the signal and remove the noise before you ever have to resist it. Your environment is more than a clean desk because your body and your relationships are part of it too. Move your body before you expect your mind to focus. Physical activity is not an extra, but one of the strongest tools for preparing attention. Never underestimate warmth and encouragement because feeling supported quiets the mental noise. Before your next work session, change the room first. Put the phone away and leave one task in front of you. Move your body and reach for connection when your thoughts are loud. Change one thing about your space today, and you may find focus comes more easily. Not because you suddenly became stronger, but because the room finally started working with you instead of against you. You do not have an attention deficit. You have plenty of attention. It is simply pulled toward the wrong things. Meet Sue. She earned straight A's with ease until middle school, when her grades suddenly collapsed. People assumed she had stopped caring. She had not. She could still lock onto anything that truly interested her for hours. What she lost was the ability to direct that focus, on command, toward what was merely important. That one difference changes everything. The phrase attention deficit may be one of the most misleading labels around. If you have experienced hyperfocus, you already know your brain can concentrate with incredible intensity. The engine is powerful. What is loose is the steering. Your attention follows interest and novelty, not importance, and it takes you wherever they lead. That also explains why trying harder rarely works. You cannot force a spreadsheet to become fascinating through willpower alone. Instead, engineer interest into the task. Change your location. Turn it into a game. Race a timer. Try to beat yesterday's progress. Create real accountability by telling someone you will report back. Or work quietly beside another person. None of that is cheating. It is giving your brain the fuel it naturally runs on. Sometimes the real distraction is not the boring task at all. It is the spiral inside your own head. You replay old mistakes, worry about the future, and lose almost an hour thinking without moving. The trap is believing you can think your way out of it. Usually, that only feeds it. Instead, redirect through action. Stand up, get a drink of water, walk across the room. Do one small physical step. Call someone. Give your attention something real to grab onto, and the spiral begins to loosen. Engineer interest before you expect focus. Add novelty, challenge, stakes, or another person. When your thoughts turn inward, stop debating them and start moving. You were never bad at paying attention. You were given a powerful engine with loose steering. Learn to guide it, and it can take you farther than you imagined. You go all in every time. A new planner, a new app, a brand new morning routine, all starting on Monday. And that is exactly why everything falls apart by Friday. The mistake is believing intensity creates lasting change. It doesn't. Intensity is a sprint fueled by frustration, and that fuel always burns out. For a brain with unpredictable motivation, dramatic overhauls were the wrong shape from the beginning. Try the opposite. Pick one tiny system, just one, and make it so small you could still do it on your worst day. Forget completely organize my mornings. Instead, always place your keys in the same bowl when you walk in. Forget get my life together. Do a 2-minute brain dump before bed. If it feels almost too small, that is usually a sign you chose the right size. Small is not settling. Small is the mechanism. Every time you repeat that tiny system, your brain strengthens the wiring behind it. The next repetition becomes a little easier. A tiny action repeated 100 times changes your life far more than one heroic burst of effort ever could. Keep running one system until it becomes automatic. Then, and only then, add another. There is one more trap. You will miss a day. Everyone does. Most big overhauls die at that exact moment. You miss Thursday, decide you have failed, and quit entirely. Instead, change what a missed day means. Treat it as information, not a verdict. Maybe the habit needs a reminder. Maybe it should be attached to brushing your teeth. Adjust the system, then continue the next day. A habit that survives a stumble becomes a habit that lasts. Choose one system small enough for your worst day. Repeat it until it is effortless. When you stumble, adjust instead of quitting. You do not have to leap across the gap between who you are and who you want to become. Lay one plank today, another tomorrow, and keep building. Those small planks become a bridge before you realize it. Not one of them got a new brain. Mike, who spent years believing he was simply lazy, finally moved forward when he stopped blaming himself and started supporting the real gaps. Sarah regained her confidence by moving her life onto systems that never forgot. Steve learned how to start instead of waiting for motivation. Sue rediscovered hope when people stopped treating a steering problem like a character flaw. A 7-year-old across the world changed after his environment changed. Every one of them transformed in the same way, and it was the opposite of the advice they had always heard. They were told to fix themselves. Be more disciplined. Be more organized. Try harder. They tried, and it never lasted, not because they were weak, but because they were solving the wrong problem. Instead, they stopped trying to force their brains to become different and started building lives that fit the brains they already had. The whole method comes down to 3 moves. First, get important information out of your head and into systems you trust so your mind no longer has to carry everything. Second, let your environment do the heavy lifting that willpower keeps failing to do. Build a space where the right choice becomes the easy choice. Third, grow everything from one small system you can actually keep instead of chasing another dramatic overhaul. It sounds like a productivity plan, but the real reward is something much quieter. When the endless list finally leaves your head, the constant background noise fades. Underneath it is the clear, capable, creative mind that was there all along. It was never broken. It was simply exhausted. You do not need a different brain. You need a better relationship with the one you already have. The same wiring that once made life difficult can become your creativity, energy, and originality once it is properly supported. Do not try to change everything today. Pick one practice. Set one brick down outside your head. Then do it again tomorrow. Little by little, the weight becomes lighter, and the quiet you've been looking for finally has room to appear.